The Curse by Steve Parker. Mazalia was a small place, barely a speck on any decent map of the world. It wasn't rich, it wasn't powerful, it had no great cultural or artistic importance. The only thing Mazalia had going for it was Megan. Megan was special. It was said that she'd been born the seventh daughter of a seventh daughter. It was said that when she was born, the full moon turned blue, and that all the beasts of the forest came to pay obeisance to the newborn child. It was said that on the moment she drew her first breath, all the druids, truth-sayers, and other magic wielders of our great island nation fell into a slumber which lasted 30 days, and woke feeling diminished as if all their power had been stolen away. All this was said and more. All that was really known, though, was that Megan was never wrong. Initially, this was very useful only for her family. Their crops were always planted on the perfect day. They always had advance warnings of storms so they could protect their lands and livestock. More of their family's children survived their early years than any other family in Mazalia, all due to Megan's excellent advice. This soon drew the attention of the local big man, who called himself a king, though he was king of little more than a few farmsteads, a small mountain, and some woods. King Lionel, for that was his name, asked that Megan be brought before him, and he began asking her questions. Which of his farmer vassals was wisest? How should he invest his scant wealth? Which of his neighbor kings were trustworthy? How could he make Mazalia great and powerful? And Megan answered them all, and she was never wrong. With her advice, the little kingdom steadily grew wealthier and more powerful. King Lionel made clever alliances, he invested well, and he shared power with his wisest vassals. Soon, Mazalia was the greatest of the tiny kingdoms in their area, and King Lionel started looking outwards with avaricious eyes, hungry for expansion. He asked Megan which of his neighbors was weakest and their people readiest for conquest, and Megan answered, and she was never wrong. First one, then another, and then many smaller kingdoms lacking in great advice fell before Mazalia. The kingdom's borders spread ever outwards, and its coffers filled to bursting. King Lionel heaped praise and rewards on the heads of his wisest and most loyal followers, never forgetting to keep Megan first in his thoughts. In fact, the whole kingdom praised Megan, for they knew she was the wellspring from which their wealth and power was born. Every single person in Mazalia loved Megan, except for one. Justin was the eldest son of King Lionel. He was tall and handsome and was also the greatest general of his father's armies. Again and again he led the forces of Mazalia against their enemies, and again he brought them victory, and again he watched the glory being given not to him, but to Megan. Despite all the wealth and power she brought, Justin was envious of her status and jealous of his father's praise. He hid his scorn, however, knowing that his father adored Megan above all things. Years passed, and Mazalia grew truly great. The entire southwestern part of our great island nation was held under their banner. King Lionel ruled fairly and well, and his people loved him and Megan, who answered all questions and was never wrong. Every social or political issue was solved perfectly. Every military campaign was executed flawlessly with Megan's advice and Justin's military leadership. It seemed nothing could ever bring an end to the glorious Mazalia. Then, one day, King Lionel died, as all men do. His people mourned him, and some even blamed Megan for his death. She explained that even the best advice could not stop time, but many would not listen. Justin took the crown and mercilessly jumped on this momentary bitterness of his people. Surely this was all Megan's fault. She had all the answers. She could have told the old king how to stay alive, but she did not. He fanned the flames of his people's suspicion and sadness and turned it against Megan and her family. Almost overnight, Megan's family was destroyed. Their lands, much expanded with years of the old king's generosity and gratitude, were raided and sacked mercilessly. Their buildings burned, their livestock driven off or stolen, and Meghan's family hunted down and murdered. Even with all this, Meghan tried to explain, but the people would not hear her. They were too sad, too angry to listen. And Justin relentlessly harangued them with malicious words, designed to keep them stupid and afraid and furious. Finally, one day he got his wish. He cornered Meghan with sword drawn and leveled at her breast, and asked her one final question.
Did you see this coming?
And he pushed his sword into her flesh. As Meghan lay on the cold stone, her life's blood staining her azure robes, she locked eyes with the young king.
Yes,
she said.
And I'm sorry for what will happen next.
And she died. Soon after Meghan's death, the nation began to decline. Without her advice, the people had to rely on Justin's statecraft, and he was only good at fighting. Their alliances fell apart, their coffers emptied, and rebellions became as common as rain. Raging, Justin fought to hold on to his father's lands, but to no avail. A career general knows little of ordinary life, and a swung sword feeds no one during a long, cold winter. The nation had almost entirely relied on Meghan's guidance, and without it, they fell again and again to errors she would have easily avoided or solved. Dead soldiers from endless failed wars left hordes of orphans fighting for the crumbs left in empty granaries. Meghan did not need to curse her murderers. Her absence was her curse. Did it work, you ask? How did it all end? Ask yourself, have you ever heard of the great kingdom of Mazelia?